This is the 966, episode 27. Richard, we're on fire. Mabruk.
You can't stop us now.
This week, we have a tremendous special guest with us, Saudi businessman, philanthropist, longtime friend of my co-host, and Richard, I think a fair description is Renaissance man, Mr. Amr Khashoggi, who is joining us from Jeddah.
Indeed.
Amr, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all these accolades you're throwing at me, being a Renaissance man. I'm flattered. Thank you.
Well, it's true. As you just mentioned, we were just chatting. You're learning another language. You're just in your spare time. You're learning French. And Lucien's right. We've known each other a long time, and I've always admired your business acumen, Amr, and also your common sense approach to policy and social issues. But what I really admire is the energy and sort of joie de vivre. There's some French for you. That'll be in your Duolingo. Joie de vivre that you bring to everything. I mean, it's really a gift, and I've watched you, over the years. I've watched you bring this positive energy to so many things. I mean, beginning with the Jeddah Economic Forum to your involvement with Young Presidents Organization, CIT, Committee for International Trade, the Next Generation Project, Qaederoon. I mean, on, and it's a gift. So we're delighted you can join us.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you and to walk through this journey with you.
On today's episode, we'll be talking about some interesting developments in the mining and minerals sector in Saudi Arabia, the Saudi IPO market, which is about as hot as Jeddah in July, and so much more. But before we get started, my usual standing on ceremony, thank you to all of you who have subscribed, especially on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It's really cool, Richard, to see our numbers growing there. Very exciting. New faces each week. Shukran to all of you. Let's get started. Richard, what's your one big thing this week?
My one big thing this week, later this week, Dawaa Medical Services, one of the largest pharmaceutical retail companies in Saudi Arabia, will list 25.5 million shares on the Saudi stock market, the Tadawul, seeking to raise about 500 million. Nahdi Medical Company, which is the kingdom's largest pharmacy retail chain, plans to seek about 1.3 billion in an IPO in the next few months, in what could be the largest share sale in the kingdom since Saudi Aramco went public in 2019. Share sales in Saudi Arabia have seen huge investor demand in the past year, with most IPOs getting priced at the top of the offering ranges and then the shares surging on their trading debut. The Saudi benchmark index has jumped about 9% this year, extending its 2021 gains of 30%. And if you're in the U.S. market now, you're looking at that with great envy. While the Kingdom's Wealth Fund, PIF, has been behind many of the biggest recent listings, an increasing number of Saudi family businesses are also capitalizing on soaring demand for stocks and testing the equity markets. The stock exchange's chief executive officer, Khalid Al-Hassan, recently commented that the pipeline for IPOs in the country is, quote, deeper than ever, unquote. Amr, you've worked closely with a number of large, successful family-owned companies. Why are increasing numbers of Saudi family businesses listing on the Tadawul?
Well, I think it's a point of sustainability. As we all know, normally in family business, they tell you there is the founder who founds the business, his children grow the business, and his grandchildren spend the business. If I remember my statistics correctly, less than 5% survive beyond the fifth generation. Today in the GCC alone, you have over the next 10 years what amounts to around $2 trillion in wealth that is going to exchange hands from one generation to another. 85% of business in Saudi Arabia is controlled and owned by family business. In order to make sure that family squabbles and what have you not really get in the way of the company or the business surviving, is to take it public. Taking a business public is no easy matter, because you're required to put certain corporate governance in place. There are lots of rules and regulations that control the business, and so no one individual or family member can wreak havoc in that business. So, so it is one way also for some of my family members who want to cash out or exit that business, they can. And also, my last point is that it also kind of spreads the wealth and not have it only controlled in a small, in the hands of a small number of people.
That's always what I've understood, that 5% is the number I've seen in terms of, you know, lasting beyond that fifth generation. And you know, I mean, this discussion in terms of IPO and some sort of exit strategy and some way to preserve the family enterprise has been going on for a long time. It seems right now that the access and the ease to get an IPO is better than it ever has been. Is that accurate? Of course, the market is up, and it's enticing in that way.
I think that the stock market, Tadawul, and the CMA, the Capital Markets Authority, as well as the central bank, or TCB, or as it used to be known as SAMA, have come a long way in developing the rules and regulations, and they're using technology today that made it a lot easier. And I can tell you that the Saudi stock market is one of the most efficiently run stock markets in the world. And I know some people think, okay, Amr is Saudi Arabia and he's saying it for this, but no, honestly, I know a lot of stock markets around the world, and I've seen where we have actually put in technology to good service in really making it a very efficient market. The other point, I think, is that there is a lot of money looking for investment opportunities, and nothing is safer than to invest in an institutional form of investments. And the stock market provides that. And families, which is another point that just came to mind, is that many family businesses, they don't want to sell their business, but maybe they want to sell part of it, and they don't want to sell it to an individual who's going to make their life miserable. They sell it in the market, they cash some money out of it, and they can put that to good use in other business. As you know, the Crown Prince has said that Saudi Arabia is no longer going to be an oil-producing country, but an energy-producing country. Now, there's a big difference between the two meanings, which is basically he wants to develop businesses that move away from dependence on oil, but also we're looking at alternative energy, more fuel efficiency, cleaner environment, and what have you. So there are lots of business opportunities, even for small and medium-sized companies, large companies, and mega companies to invest. And some of the families may want to release some funds that they can use to seed it in those investments.
That's an interesting point. It's speaking to the efficiency of the stock market, things like the introduction of the NOMU, the secondary market, that is helping out these smaller businesses, some startups. I mean, Jahez is a unicorn now. It's $1 billion, value $1 billion, and that's on the NOMU, which is not the main market. So yeah, it's been interesting to watch. We've had segments on the 966 that have sort of traced the journey of the stock market in Saudi Arabia from the crash in 2006 through the establishment of the Tadawul and getting listed in MSCI emerging markets, and then now going private. It actually issuing Tadawul actually issuing having its own IPO. It's been a remarkable journey. Lucien, what do you think?
I was going to just add to that. I mean, think about the economic headwinds behind all of this IPO activity. I mean, Richard, we were talking pretty late last night. Jadwa's recent prediction for GDP, Saudi Arabia in 2022 is 7.7% growth. On the Jadwa report, the only thing that I can see here that's higher is India at 9%. But that is red hot growth. So you have all of these headwinds behind it, which I think is very favorable for companies that are on the fence at this point. 2022 is going to be a big year. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, that Judd report was impressive, especially when they're projecting their budget for next year, which is going to be over $1 trillion. We're projecting a surplus of about $30 billion, which would be quite remarkable.
Well, and it buys time, right, for the economic diversification when oil is going up to, I think it's around $90 a barrel. That's, that helps a lot. They don't want it to help a lot, but it does in the meantime. So, Richard, my one big thing, we'll pivot here. The Saudi Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources has opened the next stage of licensing for the Khnaiguiyah site, the largest exploration site in the kingdom. Yes, I've managed to work on my pronunciations a little bit.
Well done.
Extensive exploration work has already been carried out at the Khnaiguiyah site, covering 100,000 square meters drilled and 3D geological models made. The Saudi Geological Survey has confirmed the site's considerable geological potential of approximately 26 million tons of zinc and copper, both critical minerals for the global energy transition. This is really, really fascinating, Richard. So they're now basically allowing this site to be bid upon by private enterprises. And that's where, so that's part of the whole privatization thing. Just a really interesting story. And Amr has got incredible experience in this space.
Yeah, I've been in the mining business for 42 years with mining gypsum, first National Gypsum Company, which my father was a co-founder in 1958. And I was just a child playing in the factory, learning what gypsum is about. As kid, I would have. At that time, I think I would have loved for my father to have a chocolate factory. I offered myself as a sampler and get paid for sampling the chocolates. But mining in the country has really, the mining industry is a hidden treasure. It's the third biggest earner for Saudi Arabia. I recently attended a session with His Excellency Khalid al-Befer, who is the Vice Minister for Mining and a good friend. And he presented to us really the vision and the national mining plan for the country. And it's really amazing. And we will be using technology. Already we're using technology. People can apply for licenses to explore, to mine, and to get licenses for mining, all kinds of minerals. My focus is more in industrial minerals, but there are lots of other areas like gold, and silver, and copper, and lead, and ash, and ash soda, and all kinds of possibilities. And this is going to fuel industry as well. And that is why the mining sector is supervised by the Ministry of Industry. And it's going to, I think it will be a huge impetus to economic growth in the next few years. Mark my word. So yes, I believe it is our hidden wealth, literally. It's underground. And there are many ways of mining it. And I think Saudi Arabia is going about it the right way by getting the right expertise, inviting the right kind of people to invest. And they have developed the way to, the mechanism by which you can get involved in this type of business. So I'm very optimistic, and it's a very promising industry.
I think you were on that panel with the vice chairman at the recent Future Minerals Summit in Riyadh, right?
I was supposed to be there. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. I got sick. Unfortunately, that's one of those things that happened. So I missed attending it, but I followed it online, obviously.
Well, that was a big show with a lot of announcements in terms of the new mining laws. And
I sit on the gypsum manufacturers committee, which is part of the Federation of Saudi Chambers of Commerce and Industry. which is based in Riyadh. And we are in constant contact with the ministry, and the ministry is really communicating with the private sector to find out what are the various challenges and issues and problems. And really through these discussions and workshops that we keep on holding with them, we're finding really very good solutions to resolve it, whether it's in electric power or the time it takes to get a mining license or many different problems, and we are overcoming them through dialogue and brainstorming and workshops. So it's great, and it has to be. This is really leading to a true PPP, public-private partnership between the public sector and the private sector. And it's not just a matter of asking the private sector come and dish out money into projects. No, it's actually let's think of what projects are feasible, how will they work, how can we participate in it, what is your role, what is our role, and so forth. And this is it's coming and gelling together in a very nice way.
I agree with you. I am, that National Industrial Development Plan, which is responsible for developing a number of sectors: industry, automotive, military, mining, energy, logistics. But like that mining sector, as you say, is really has tremendous potential. It's already a great revenue producer. I think in 2020 at $26 billion in terms of revenue. But what I didn't realize is Saudi Arabia is the fourth largest net importer of minerals in the world. So there's a huge domestic market already. The Arabian Shield is extraordinarily rich. They've done these geological surveys. They've identified a lot of things. So not only I think will it be, they want to double revenue by 2030, but I think it'll be a real, a genuine opportunity for foreign direct investment, which is another priority. This is something where a foreign investor can see immediately that there's going to be an opportunity for returns, there's a better investment regime. A lot of these countries, global miners work in very hostile, difficult environments. It's good to come to Saudi Arabia where it's secure, they have good roads, you have a good investment strategy. I agree with you. It's just extremely promising.
I think there is another point, if I may jump in here and tell you that it's also linked to another type of industry, which is very important. The mining industry will grow in parallel with how you develop the transport and logistic service industry. So already the government is planning to build railway lines to be able to transport a lot of the mined goods and raw materials and bring them to industrial clusters where they can be processed and manufactured into products that can be either exported or sold locally. So the logistics business is also another area where it is showing phenomenal growth, exponential growth, and of all forms, whether you are building warehouses, whether you're building roads, or railways, or developing trucking, all kinds of services. And this is again linked to the insurance business. So, a lot of that has to be, a lot of potential new business that is going to be available to insurance companies and so forth. And so everything kind of is linked to each other. And that is what the whole National Transformation Plan of Saudi Arabia, which comes from the Vision 2030, in order to come up with an action plan that can be implemented in order to make sure that that vision gets achieved by 2030. And it's all linked. It's linked to education, it's linked to training, it's linked to legal, all of the, we talked about the stock market. How are you going to protect the small investor? So there are rules and regulations and what have you in order to do that. In order to process the economic, you need legal contracts that can be honored and so forth. And today, I mean, if I have a court case, or even if I have to give a, I could be sitting in Timbuktu and I can go online and give somebody a power of attorney in Saudi. Okay, I can attend a court case, and I don't even need to go to the court physically. I can be sitting here as if I'm talking to you on Zoom. I can be there in a Zoom call with the judge, with my opponent or the defendant, whatever, and we can sort it out and talk it out and try to resolve it amicably if possible. And if not, then we depend on what the judge rules. So technology is changing everything, not just in Saudi Arabia, but all over the world, specifically in Saudi Arabia, and we are pushing for it. And I think the business of technological developments and automation is another area of growth that would attract local, regional, and international investors, foreign direct investors.
Speaking of technology, we're hoping in a future episode to have someone from the Saudi Data and AI Authority to talk about everything they're doing in data, but also the Tawakkalna app, which has been transformative and really a tremendous tool in terms of battling the pandemic in Saudi Arabia. Something I wish we had here.
Definitely jealous of that.
Tawakkalna, I think, is now accepted in several countries.
Yeah.
To prove that I am fully vaccinated. And by the way, I've taken 4 vaccinations, 3 for COVID and 1 for the flu.
So you're like super protected.
I more super vaccinated. But I just heard yesterday somebody was telling me that as a Saudi, having the Tawakkalna program, I can actually enter Bahrain. I don't need a passport or my ID or anything. I just use Tawakkalna for that, which is an incredible achievement. And I think if that experiment succeeds, it will be all over the GCC. So we'll be going, all over the GCC just using our application of Tawakkalna.
Amr, I'm also quadruple vaccinated with the 3 and then the flu shot. I still got Omicron this winter over Christmas.
super vaxxed.
But that's the whole point. It was honestly, had I not tested, we were all going to go see my mother, and so all the grandkids, and so it was going to be a lot of people around my so we all tested. I tested positive. If I had not tested, I wouldn't have known. I mean, the symptoms were so mild, and that's the whole point.
Yeah, we all pray and hope that this thing will fizzle out as it has, as quickly as it has come in. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see it leave quickly. And if you look at history, I mean, these kind of endemics or epidemics, they come and go, and we can't do anything about it. Can't worry about it. We just need to worry how we react to it. And I think, at least our experience in Saudi Arabia, we've reacted very well to it. We immediately took very drastic actions at the very beginning, and that's why our numbers have been very low. Yes, we've had deaths, we've had people that got infected, but our numbers are a lot better than anywhere else around the world.
Something to be proud of. I mean, the Bloomberg COVID resilience ranking just recently, maybe a month ago, came out and had Saudi Arabia as ranked number 2. It's done a remarkable job. Less than 9,000 Saudis have died, which is an extraordinary number when you're talking about the size of that population. So you guys, Saudi Arabia should be quite pleased with how it's performed in this crisis.
And that's another thing that economists are citing as part of the headwinds behind the Saudi economy is how well positioned they are to, in the post-COVID world, which we're now kind of entering 2022. It's just how well Saudi Arabia has done with coronavirus all the way through. Lockdowns. Canceling or scaling back the Hajj twice was an expensive decision. And and a very tough decision to take, but, safety first. So very interesting. Richard, if we could move on now to our main segment, which is sort of going to be a conversation with Amr. And Richard, when speaking, with a true Renaissance man, it's best not to be tied down to just one topic. So we're going to sort of break this segment down into two main parts, starting first with international relations. And then we'd like to talk a little bit more about the Saudi economy, Vision 2030, and a handful of sectors in the kingdom, as well as Amr's business interests. But so let's start with global affairs here. Amr has been working with the Saudi Committee for International Trade, CIT. He was appointed by the late King Abdullah as the chief coordinator for the Saudi Outreach Program. Amr, I think a great place to start here is to talk a little bit about how Saudi foreign policy has evolved since the rise of King Salman and how the kingdom's position and influence in global affairs has grown.
Okay, I can start with 9/11. That was a very sad day for all of us. And it's unfortunate that lives were lost. The perpetrators of that hideous crime had an intention of driving a wedge between our two countries, Saudi Arabia and the United States. And really, they were a bunch of misfits who do not represent Saudi Arabia and do not represent our people in any way or form. They hijacked our nationality, they hijacked our religion, and tarnished it beyond imagination. I think at that time, the whole population of Saudi Arabia rallied behind their king and basically volunteered to do whatever they can to do it. I didn't do anything on my own. Committee of International Trade had more than 80 men and women from Saudi Arabia, from all kinds of fabrics of the society, from teachers to religious scholars to businessmen, businesswomen, doctors, all kinds of professions, educators, from the academia, from the media, and so forth. And we actually, I think after 9/11, myself and also Mr. Abdullah Zainal, who was the chairman of at the time it was called Council of the Saudi Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and Mr. Dr. Majid Al-Ghasabi, who was at the time Secretary General of the Jeddah Chamber of Commerce. Today, he's the Minister of Commerce in Saudi Arabia. And basically, the three of us went to Washington, D.C. 3 months after 9/11. And we met with everybody. I know Richard knows me, and I'm very blunt and transparent. I speak my mind. We have a saying in Arabic. We say that my heart is at the tip of my tongue. So I speak what's in my mind. I remember we met with an official at the State Department, and he said, "Don't ever dream that the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States will be the same." And I immediately retorted to him. I said, "No, I don't want it to be the same. I want it to be better." The relationship was based on economic interests in the past. Today, it has to be based on mutual respect and a true partnership, a true strategic partnership. Saudi Arabia can play a major role in the Middle East. It's a leader in the Middle East and can be of great help to really partner with the United States, as well as we as Saudi Arabia will benefit from our partnership with the United States. But it has to be strategic. And then from there, I went to New York. I met with the New York Partnership. Various people have visited Ground Zero. And just on a personal level, my son was studying at Columbia at the time, and he lived in Tribeca. Literally, he saw the second plane crash into the building from his bedroom window. And then he disappeared, and for 3 or 4 hours, his mother and I died and lived a few times, worried sick about him. thank God he survived that, and he graduated, made us proud. So the relationship, I mean, when we think of foreign policy of Saudi Arabia is a sovereign country. And we have our own identity, we have our own culture, we have our own religion, and we'd love to have great relationships with all over the world. But it has to be on a mutual respect basis. And it has to be based on really strategic partnership. So today we have a strategic partnership with the United States, but we also have strategic partnership with China, with India, with Japan, with many other countries around the world, as it should be. We are part of this globe, and we know that there could be some difficult political differences between countries, and even between us and other countries, but that should not prevent us from coexisting peacefully and try to respect each other and make sure that right people are not deprived of their human rights and abilities to live peacefully and to be able to look after their families and children, and make sure that their children are fed and educated, schooled, and live a safe life rather than be subjected to terror or any of that sort of thing. So there could be a lot of collaborations. Politically, there could be a lot of collaborations economically. And today, the more that the United States builds that political strengthen that political relationship with Saudi Arabia, obviously, economically, it will benefit. Jobs will be created in the United States. American companies would get opportunities to come and invest and benefit from their investments in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a fertile country, as we have been talking recently. So that's, and I think today, King Salman is making really his mark on where Saudi Arabia wants to be. And it's all for the benefit of the people of Saudi Arabia, primarily, and making sure that they have a decent life, and at the same time, internationally, to make Saudi Arabia be an actor, an international actor, on the international field and stage, where we can push for the right kind of policies that we believe in, through dialogue, through these strategic partnerships. I don't know if I got carried away here.
No. Two questions, actually two observations, and I'd love your feedback. Looking to the past, that post-9/11 period was so difficult, and I worked closely with CIT, and I got to know so many of your compatriots, Amr, true, and I call them patriots, Saudis who were just genuinely pained by this, and especially hurt by how vilified Saudi Arabia was at the time, and for an extended period of time. Especially, these are Saudis who have a tremendous affinity for the United States. They live there, they work there, they study there, they're sending their kids there, and so it's very hard to feel that it was intense and negative and very difficult period. So I know that was painful, but let's come to the modern day. And look at the relationship, and this is one of my frustrations. We look at the relationship, and it's built on significant common interests. There's security common interests. There's energy common interests. It's important to have a relationship with Saudi Arabia because it has such an influential role in the Muslim world. Any number of reasons for counterterrorism. The number of points where the U.S. and Saudi Arabia intersect and mutually benefit are just many and varied. I really like, for us, in terms of the U.S., our approach to Saudi Arabia to move beyond that and find ways to get more involved, invest in, support what's going on in Saudi Arabia, this tremendous effort to diversify economically, these goals to deal with the global energy conversion, this impetus, as you noted earlier, to move from oil to energy, and the social reform is extraordinary. So what I'm saying, and you can comment on this, maybe there's no comment to be made, I'd really like for us to expand our understanding of how we can be involved in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't have to be arms. It doesn't have to be managing the oil market. It can be, we can move beyond that. I'd like to see us move beyond that. I'm not seeing it at the moment.
I think that you don't only have one ambassador in Saudi Arabia. You have thousands of ambassadors in Saudi Arabia. People like me. I went to Menlo College in California and graduated from Yale University in 1979. That's 42 years ago, and 43 years ago. And we believe in America. We believe in the American system. We believe in the play fair attitude. Unfortunately, there have been times when you weren't playing fair. Okay, to be honest, and I think you need to rethink about that. If America want to be a player in the global world and be a leader, you have to play fair and you have to be transparent about it. Saudi Arabia is a young country. I'm approaching my 70th birthday next October, just for your information. And I have lived through all the kings of Saudi. King Abdulaziz, the founder of Saudi Arabia, died in 1953 when I was 1 year old. So technically speaking, I lived 1 year in his reign. So I lived through all the things, but that gives you a physical vision of how young Saudi Arabia is. Trust me, I feel very young. And I am young at heart. So we, in the last 70 years, we have been developing. We've been on a learning curve. We've been developing the country, and really the country has come together now to be a formidable force and a country to be reckoned with tremendous opportunities. It's not just a wealthy country; it's a country where you can build wealth. And you can come and invest in this country and participate in that work. So the opportunities are there for people to come and invest here. The opportunities are there for people to come and live here. Richard, you remember we had young students, American students, come and visit. We can do that again. We've had political people, and we are constantly receiving people from Europe, but less so from America. And I think this is, if you are asking the question, how can we do better? I think this is what we need to do. We need to really develop more people-to-people initiatives, exchange students. I sit on the board of Effort University, which is an all-girls school, but they just received permission to accept boys, so it's going to be co-ed.
That ruins everything.
I think the first few boys that join the school are going to be extremely overwhelmed. But I sit on the board of advisors, and we have exchange programs with American universities, and it's great. Students from us go to American universities. Students from America, they come here. And as you know, Richard, for the first 7 years after 9/11. I used to come on 9/11 every year, go to an American university and talk with students about Saudi Arabia, about Islam, about Arab culture, and so forth. And, we recognize that we have so much in common between our people, and yet we do have some differences. And so we all agreed, let's build on what we have in common and respect the differences. And that's really the successful formula for a successful partnership between our two countries.
Agreed. Please give my regards to Haifa Jamalaleya when you see her. She's done a remarkable job with EFAT. I'm sure with the help of people like yourself. I think that touches on it, and I think that's one of the. I want to refer to the Committee for International Trade. I think there is no, and actually, part of what we're trying to do with the 966, there's simply no substitute for Saudis talking about Saudi Arabia and talking about, their country, talking about Saudi Arabia and also relations with the U.S. and elsewhere. And that's, 966 increasingly will be trying to create a platform for these discussions. CIT over the decades, this was founded in the 80s, has always done this person to person, and there's no better representative. I remember when we do delegations, Amr, and we go someplace out in the hinterlands and maybe seeing a World Affairs Council or some civil society organization, and some of the women that were on those delegations, and these are private sector men and women, really top flight professionals. I would never forewarn the hosts and say, well, you're going to hear this, you're going to hear that, because they were such tremendous representatives for themselves and for the country that people would just go, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know that, that you can have these conversations. I didn't know these people, all these things, eye-opening things that you get when you meet someone in person or you meet somebody virtually, and so on and so forth. So the work you've done over the years, Amr, and that's why I say, you've done it because you're a patriot. I just want to add, last episode, was it, Lucien, I was making the point that Ibn Saud, King Abdulaziz, died in 1953. Eisenhower was president. This is how recent Saudi Arabia is. Just trying to put it in context for Americans who always seem, there's always the instinct to think that countries are fully formed and they all agree with us. Well, they don't, and they're younger and they're on their own path. And that's part of the journey of respect and understanding that we want to help out.
Yeah, it's, I was born in Abha, and as a child, women were not covered. They worked in the fields wearing their sombrero hats, and they actually engaged in politics discussions with the men. They were mixing, Of course, that changed, when there was some movement away from moderate Islam, as our Crown Prince said a few years ago, that really we need to go back to moderate Islam and really adhere to Islam the right way. And I think this is where the changes have come recently. So, yeah, it's a very interesting discussion and a very interesting debate to have. But at the end of it is that we're human beings. We have to carry on with our lives, to improve our lives, build our families, build our businesses, and so on, and in the process participate in our. So, for example, I was, somebody said to me, you allowed women to drive in Saudi Arabia because the Americans forced you to do. I said, no. The reason that women were allowed to drive is because of an economic reason. You have a woman who is, and when we went in those delegations, Richard, all of the years, whenever anybody asked me, I would turn to the ladies in our group to answer the questions. And they all answered the same thing. They said, driving is not our priority. Getting jobs, we want to get jobs, we want to be able to work, and that is what is our priority is. Getting a job and having to spend a third of your salary to pay a driver or inconvenience your father or your brother or your husband or your son to drive you became an economic burden. So by allowing women to drive, we remove that economic burden, and so they can drive to work, they can drive to school. As a result, a large number of foreign drivers have left the country since women were allowed to drive. And so we have to look at it pragmatically and not make up stories. Right?
Yeah, obviously, absolutely. That was an economic imperative. You can't have half your population, with these extraordinary obstacles just to get to work. I mean, even if you were a teacher, a female teacher somewhere, you'd have to wait, for a van to come pick up. So it'd take you an hour to get to work, and it was a real problem. Absolutely economic imperative. And I think you referenced, Amr, something I think is unseen and not sufficiently appreciated, and that is the swing back. And what you were referencing was the swing to the conservative, the right after 1979, and to a type of Islam that you didn't grow up with, a different type of Islam, and the efforts now with King Salman and the Crown Prince to move it back to the moderate Islam, and to sort of undo some of that severe move to the right, and how important this is to have that message coming out of Saudi Arabia, because it's so influential that we need to be more moderate, we need to be more inclusive, and that's the type of Islam that we are trying to espouse and we're trying to live by. And like you say, this is what you grew up with.
Yeah, I mean, Islam is a great religion. It's really it's a code for how to live your life, how to coexist with your fellow human being, how to be respectful to your neighbors, how do you bring up your children. It's a how to live. The Quran is an how to live book. Unfortunately, during the let's call it the foggy period, the Quran was not interpreted correctly. There were a lot of contradictory fatwas and contradictory remarks and so forth, and this has been put to bed, and today the true Islam, the moderate Islam, is what is being promoted in Saudi Arabia, and has made life a lot easier for people.
If we could move on now, because I think the economy is where we all agree, where sort of these soft power ties can be built between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. And what we'd like to do here is start, Amr, by talking a little bit about Amkest Group and some of the sectors you're invested in and how your business has grown under the Kingdom's Vision 2030 economic and social diversification plans that we were talking about earlier. I think would be really interesting for listeners.
Okay, I mean, after I graduated in 1979, I worked for the family business for a few years. And then in 1983, I established Amkest Group. And Amkest is an acronym for Amr Khashoggi Establishment. So, and in Arabic, it's still called Amr Khashoggi Company for Trade, but it's too long. Amkest is short. And we have, next year we'll celebrate 40 years of our existence. And we have gone into various businesses, got out of it, moved into other businesses and so forth. So we invested in landscaping business, we invested in transport, and so forth. But really the main business that we always stuck with is building materials. And I mentioned mining, and today part of the Amkest Group is a company called Global Gypsum Company, or 3G, where we have a factory that manufactures gypsum in Yanbu, and we have mines we get our gypsum rock from 100 miles up from Yanbu on the Umrich road. And we trade in building materials, and that's the main business of ours. Like any Saudi company, we have to be in real estate somehow. So we have developed commercial real estate and residential real estate, and both here and abroad. And recently, and we've been in the technology business. I'm a certified computer instructor for information. Although I'm like Richard speaking French, forgot all about it. I don't know how to train anymore. And technology has developed light year speed that I don't think I can catch up with. But basically, we recently got into partnership with Pacific Green Technologies, which is an American company that has a partnership with Power China. And they actually own 51% of that joint venture, and Power China owns 49%, something unheard of because Power China is a government-owned company. But they brought a lot of value to Power China that they have accepted them to have the larger share. They also have a joint venture with Shanghai Electric, and they have offices in China, in Canada, in the UK, Australia, and so forth, and Chile, all over the world. And they have in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah and Riyadh, in partnership with Amkest Group. We're the smaller shareholder, that joint venture. And the joint venture, I know that, Pacific Green Technologies, they provide 8 or 9 different technologies, from solar to green hydrogen, green ammonia, scrubbers, all kinds of business. So we took a look at those technologies and we said, okay, as the Arabic saying, you eat grapes one grape at a time. So let's develop those steps. And we decided to concentrate on the low-hanging fruit. So we're focusing on the businesses that do not require too much technical and scientific capabilities, let's put it that way, and where the opportunities are in Saudi Arabia. Now, as I said earlier, the Saudi government has taken a decision to move more into from an oil-producing country to an energy-producing country. So it's not just about coming up with alternative energy or renewable energy, but also in making sure that the fuels that we have today are clean fuels. So we have the technology to clean those fuels and remove the sulfur from it and make it more friendly to the environment. So that's also part of the whole exercise. How can Saudi Arabia reduce the carbon footprint and develop technologies and so on. So we are part of several initiatives here where we bring in our research and development capabilities in order to have better clean energy.
Let me take note there, and it's something I've always thought was remarkable about so many Saudi businessmen and women that I know, and that is, you're partnering there with Pacific Green, a U.S. company, Shanghai Electric. I'm sure you do business in Europe and elsewhere. I mean, this is sort of par for the course for a good businessman in Saudi Arabia, and that's one of the interesting things about when you get to know them, how internationally savvy they are. And Saudi Arabia doesn't have the huge domestic market that the U.S. does. So many American businessmen who may or may not be global, they may be rich and all that, but they may just not work outside of the U.S. That's not how it works in Saudi. For most companies that are of any size and scale, they're working in Asia and Europe and the U.S., Africa, increasingly. So it's fascinating to hear you talk about that. Lucien and I always talk about doing this podcast, how fun it is because we learn so much. And so when I did a little dive into Pacific Green, and I guess when you talk about mitigating and reducing emissions, that sort of thing, one of their major businesses is marine scrubbers. And I don't know how deeply you'll be involved with that, but that was, that's, again, as with so many things with the climate, it's an issue you didn't even know existed, because these ocean-going vessels and container ships and that sort of thing are using bunker fuel, which is high in sulfur and huge emissions. But the marine scrubbers clean these up and reduce the emissions and are now mandated. It's a good business, it seems like, to be in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you know, the International Maritime Organizations, IMO, they have they've always wanted to make sure that they have rules and regulations for ship owners in order to use the seas and oceans and be friendly to those seas and oceans. So by using high sulfur fuels, wasn't going to make them very attractive. But the rules were not enforced. Until recently, they have become stricter and they're enforcing it. And many countries have kind of jumped on the wagon in a sense and are not allowing ship owners to bring in their ships into ports of their countries if they are using high sulfur fuels. So it became a necessity for them to reduce these sulfurs. Pacific Green Technologies is not the only company that makes marine scrubbers, but they're one of the top 5 in the world. And they are talking to ship owners, Saudi Arabia as well, around the world. And they are already have sold hundreds of scrubbers all over the world. And hopefully we will do the same here. As you know, it's a process of introducing, educating, and testing and pilots, programs, and so forth. And but I think we will prevail and be successful with this business, and it looks very promising.
It's an exciting time to be in this space. Are you, if I may ask, are you guys doing any work with the National Renewable Energy Project Office for Saudi Arabia, REPTO?
Yeah, of course, you have to be. Definitely, we work with them. We work with KAUST University as well, with Saudi Aramco. So definitely with the Ministry of Energy. We have decided that Pacific Green and Amkest Group to put our hand, the government's hand, and work shoulder to shoulder with them to bring in the best-in-class systems and projects and software and have you in order to achieve Saudi's vision that by 2050 we will have zero emission of carbon. And that is an aim that we have also put as a target. We have put it for ourselves, and we're moving towards that target.
Yes, the Saudi Green Initiative and Saudi Aramco, I guess, is 2050, and the country itself put 2060. The energy mix and the transitions that are underway, and the transitions that are intended all the way from renewables to blue hydrogen and green hydrogen are remarkable. And we often comment that Saudi Arabia is especially interesting because they are expanding across the whole spectrum. In other words, they're not only they're expanding their crude crude production capacity, not only are they expanding their natural gas capacity, their renewables, the clean energy, hydrogen, blue hydrogen, and as well as nuclear. So they're going aggressively to expand every element of that energy sector that you talked about, that energy spectrum. Obviously, with the intention of developing technologies in terms of carbon capture and hydrogen and that sort of thing that will help them be industry leaders. But it's really fascinating to watch a country very purposefully and with intent go about trying to make this transition.
Yeah, I mean, the government is putting everything they can behind developing this. As I said, it's two areas. One area is to make sure that whatever fuel. I mean, oil we know is not going to go anywhere for many years to come. I don't know how many years, but definitely this will be here for the next 50 years, my view. So to make sure that that fuel that goes out there is clean and provides clean energy. And that's where scrubbers come in, for example. And the scrubbers are not only marine scrubbers, but you have also scrubbers you can put at the refineries. So whatever fuel comes out of the refinery is clean. And then the other one is coming up with alternative energies, whether you're using solar, you're using wind, you're using thermal energy, whether you are developing even wind energy. You know, we're working on developing wind energy that you put on boats. These are vertical systems where they can actually lift the boat, and therefore they reduce the drag, which causes them to use less fuel. So that's another area we're working on. And there are sails you can also use, and all kinds of technologies that are still in the development stage and not commercialized yet. But everybody is heading towards that. And you mentioned green hydrogen, blue hydrogen. The difference is where you are using renewable energy to produce the hydrogen, in which case it is green hydrogen, and if you don't use renewable energy and producing directly through hydrogen. And the same thing for ammonia. So yes, Saudi Arabia has already made announcements of green hydrogen projects, whether Qaederoon or Red Sea project. So definitely we're moving in that direction. And how you are going to be producing electricity cheaply and efficiently is very important, because power plants are something where a lot of systems can help it in order to utilize the fuel more efficiently, and I think this will be good for the environment.
I think that if we could just ask one last question in this segment, I think Richard and I both very much want to know about this. Qaederoon, Amr, is your nonprofit. It's a success story in Saudi Arabia. It's also an uplifting story. Could you tell us a little bit about the good work you're doing there and what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I think Richard one time asked me, he said, Amr, are you retired? And I told him, no, I'm rewired. So what did I rewire into? I have Salman Al-Reza, he's my son-in-law. He's the CEO of Amkest Group, so he takes care of the business and he runs it. And really, a lot of my time I spend on Qaederoon. Now, Qaederoon in Arabic, it means we are able. So back in 2012, the time the Minister of Labor said to me, how can we help people with disability to get jobs? What do you think? And I said, well, there are examples of around the world where they have been successful. Let's learn what they can do and figure it out. So he asked me to spearhead this effort, and so we went and we checked with the International Labour Organization, which is part of the United Nations, based in Geneva. We checked with Business Disability Forum, BDF, in the UK, and we started learning what other companies are doing. So we saw that in Saudi Arabia there are a lot of charities that help people with disability. From the time they are born, but when they reach the age of work, they don't know what to do with them. So we said that's where the problem is. That's the missing link. So we will address the missing link. So we founded the Qaederoon Business Disability Network. It's an employer network. So our focus is on the companies, the small and medium-sized enterprises, the large ones, and the mega-sized companies, as well as public companies and also non-profit organizations as well. And we started building. We launched it back in 2014. So for the last 8 years, we started building this organization as a non-profit organization, and as a non-profit arm of Amkest Group. And basically, we have done a lot of work. You can see it on our website. But basically, our mission is to include and employ people with disability. And every year we come up with new initiatives, new ideas. So we have launched recently a gateway, a platform for a career portal, in a sense, specifically for people with disability. And we did it in partnership with Fate.com, who has a huge database of people who look for jobs, but not specifically people with disability. And we developed a program called Mu'ama, because unfortunately before, anybody that, the government wanted to incentivize the private sector to employ people with disability. So they offered them that any Saudi with disability that you hire will be counted as 4. So it improves your Saudization percentage. But unfortunately, a lot of it turned into phantom employment. They give them some money and they say, stay at home and don't come to work because they didn't want them around. And so we came up with this Mu'ama program, which basically means Disability Compliance Index, which we have adopted from the UK, and it has like 8 or 9 criteria. And we convinced the Ministry of Human Resources to adopt it and to use it. That nobody gets the 4-to-1 incentive unless they have the certificate of Mu'ama. Now, Qaederoon plays a role where we train and do workshops and awareness and so forth till we get to the point where they actually then are tested by the ministry and then are issued the certificate of Mu'ama. And once they have the certificate, then they get the 4-to-1 ratio. So that, and we've been very busy with that. Now we have also started new initiatives in developing people with disability by having this portal. And we have more than 1,000 job seekers on that portal. And we're helping, the government now also to employ people with disability as civil servants in the 24 ministries that exist today. So there is a lot that we are doing, and we have. I'm very proud of the team we have. We have Uhud Tarabzoon, she's the general manager of Qaederoon, and doing a fabulous job with a very strong experience in the non-profit area. And I'm officially the chairman, but unofficially I'm just the coach. And it's really wonderful. We, as the country is developing sports events, tourism, and what have you, we are participating through memorandum of understandings with the various government ministries and agencies and what have you, to make sure that people with disability get their, rightful attention. So, for example, when we had the Formula One in Jeddah, We had specific parking for people with disability, and everything, all the paddocks and all the various things were really compatible and compliant with the needs of people with disability.
Just awesome stuff. Really awesome mission. For our viewers and listeners, check out Qaederoon online. If you just, I think it's Qaederoon.com, but if you just put it into Google, it's first thing come up. It's a really great success story and mission in Saudi Arabia. And Richard, we've talked a lot about social entrepreneurship recently. We had a great conversation with Lena Al-Maina a few months ago, just sort of about this budding sector. So this is a really exciting enterprise. So thank you for sharing that with us, Amr. That's really interesting.
Let me add here, Amr, this is God's work. This is really admirable. I have a special needs son who, had a modified high school diploma, will never go to college, has to get into the workplace. And the disability compliance index is so important, because even when it's mandated for private sector, and we take out Sam and he applies for jobs, and the company will have a policy, but the actual application of the policy is very mixed and often unsatisfying. And we've seen it across a number of companies who say, oh yes, we have X% for disability, and we love to have them here, and in fact that's not the case. And so but nonetheless, you have a kid, you have millions of kids that you're working with that can be constructive, really valuable members of the workforce and society that just need a point of entry, need the opportunity. And smart companies come to understand how valuable they are and come to understand what an asset they are. But not every company is a smart company. So anyway, what you're doing speaks is close to my heart, very personal. So thank you.
If you look at it from a statistical point of view, around 15% of the population on this earth are people with disability. We don't use the word special needs. We use the official word, which is people with disability. And I'll explain that. In the United Nations, actually people with disability requested the United Nations to change from using special needs, because they said a pregnant woman has special needs. An old man like me has special needs. Actually, the walking stick or whatever, adults, but yeah. The reason that they wanted the word person with disability, or job seeker with disability, or employee with disability, is that the person comes first, the disability comes second. So you first look at the person, and the person has abilities. That's why we call it Qaederoon, because they are able to work. And Qaederoon, we as employers are able to hire them. And Qaederoon is Qaederoon.sa. I'm doing some advertisement here. Basically, we tell companies, when you are interviewing, I mean, that's what we do. We create awareness. We say those people are not, you don't have to have sympathy for them and feel sorry for them, because that's wrong and insulting, to tell you the truth. And at the same time, you don't have to consider them heroes because they have been able to do things in spite of their disability. That's also wrong. They are normal people who have normal abilities. So when we tell the companies, when you are interviewing those people, don't say, oh, this disability, did you have it from birth? Or was it due to an accident or whatever, and the first 15 minutes or half an hour of the interview is a discussion about the disability. See, never mention the disability. Ask them, do you know accounting, do you know English, do you know computers? Similar to the same questions you would ask a normal person, okay, or a person who has no disability. And then once you finish the interview and you are convinced that that person is somebody you want to hire, you say, okay, we're glad to have you come and join us. what can we do to accommodate your disability? What services do you need? You need a lift, you need the bathroom to be of a certain size, you need, of course, what we do during the first awareness is we make sure that the work environment is compatible with universal accessibility. Okay, so we are experts in this field, and we bring people that take a look at a building being constructed, or even a building that has been constructed, where they need to change the bathrooms or change the desks to be a certain size or whatever. And a lot of people, when they think of disability, they just think of wheelchair users. So, no, there are other disabilities that you need to think about: sight, disability, hearing impairment, speech impairment. But these can be accommodated by having somebody who knows sign language, or somebody that you provide them with certain areas that a blind person can actually walk in, and blind people have proved that they can work, and they are great workers in, for example, customer service. They're great there. And then when you go into what we call mental disability, like autism or Down syndrome or whatever, they can also work. I mean, you see in Hollywood, they're using them constantly in films, and they act, and they do well. But there is a way to manage their disability. So somebody with autism can work in a warehouse, but you need to color code the boxes and tell him red is with red, blue is with blue, and they will continue to work until you tell them to stop. They will not even stop for a glass of water, or they won't even stop to have lunch or take a break. So, their sense of timing, something is different, but you just need to understand that and accommodate.
We'll move on to our final segment, Yallah, Saudi, in a minute, and I'll let you kick it off if you don't mind. We've got some really good ones this week. It'll be great to get Amr's take on all of this.
Will do, but since we moved into the segment, I have one question. Amr, can you tell me about the picture behind you? On your wall.
In black and white. That's a picture of my father. He was the private physician to King Abdulaziz. He graduated from the Sorbonne in Paris in 1932. Came to Saudi, a poor man, and basically he established with Mr. Jaffali a partnership in Mecca to have an electricity generators to power his X-ray machine, and they supplied lights for free to the Holy Mosque of Mecca, but they financed it by selling electricity to the shops around the Holy Mosque, and then he was taken to. Then he went to Riyadh and worked for the King Abdulaziz for 20 years until he passed away as his private physician. So, and then from there he went and established business like the National Gypsum Company and others. And he keeps watching me.
He's over your shoulder, yes. Yallah, the first one. The Saudi cabinet has approved a license for a local digital bank to be established with a capital of $440 million. The D360 Bank will be established through a consortium of individual and corporate investors led by Dawaa Financial Company, with the Public Investment Fund being one of the main investors. With the newly issued license, the total number of licensed banks in the kingdom will reach 35, including 11 local banks, 3 local digital banks, and 21 foreign bank branches. This is according to the central bank.
Very hot space in Saudi Arabia, fintech, especially recently. Amr, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I went physically to a bank branch. Everything is done online. I do it on my phone. I do it on my computer, my iPad. All my banking needs. I buy stock and sell stock. Everything is done digitally. And one other business we didn't really talk about that I think it's a growing business in the digital space, and that's video games, digital games, and these are taking off in Saudi Arabia also, and you will see more of it happen. I'm not involved in that space, but I see it, and because of my interest in technology, I follow it just by reading about it. But again, I mean, there is no need for even businesses, normal businesses today, post COVID-19. A lot of people say, why do we need all these offices and pay rent for thousands of square feet or square meters, whatever, when we can have people work online, when I can have people work in my company and provide me with services from all over the world. They don't even have to be physically in Saudi Arabia. So it has changed the way that we do business. And technology is really disrupting technology. I mean, definitely it has changed the whole thing. So again, banks today, they say, why should we have offices? We can live on digital banking. And let's get a license to do digital banking. And I think it will be very successful, extremely successful.
There you go. This is one of those things. This is the silver lining of the COVID pandemic. The Vision 2030 goals of digitizing and technological, introducing these kinds of e-commerce options. It was just turbocharged. I think I read the other day that something like 1,800 ATMs have been removed in the last quarter because people aren't going to get cash. They're not needed as much. Just like you said, you don't need storefronts when you can do so much virtually or digitally. So it's interesting to watch the transformation. It's interesting to watch it really accelerate like it has over the last year and a half.
Richard, I only carry cash to tip. I don't carry cash. I even use my phone to pay with Apple Pay or whatever, or
right.
STC Pay. I can transfer money, STC Pay. I can pay people
right.
with STC Pay. So I really don't need to carry cash. I don't even carry my wallet anymore. For my ID is in Tawakkal now. So everything is on my phone. If I lose my phone, I'm in real trouble. So I have to make sure I don't lose it.
What's your Saudi? You have multiple phones.
I only have one phone.
Was that right?
You must be the only Saudi then with only one phone.
I know.
I also haven't carried cash in like 6 months, and this is a great segue to our next topic. But I only used to carry cash to tip at golf courses, and now I don't. I use Venmo, which is great. Topic 2, Gulf Saudi has attained a full member status of the European Disabled Golf Association, EDGA, as part of its efforts to promote the sport for all players in Saudi Arabia. The news was revealed during the Saudi International Tournament by Majid Al-Sarur, CEO of Gulf Saudi and the Saudi Golf Federation, who said its membership in EDGA would enhance the accessibility of golf in Saudi Arabia. Amr, I understand that you were the first member at the Royal Greens club where the Saudi International is played every year. Saudi golf is really hot right now globally, dominating headlines every week. So very interesting story here, and good for Gulf Saudi.
Yeah, I think, I'm a golf addict. So, yeah.
Please come back and join us every week then.
Yes, exactly.
We love golf.
I love the game, and unfortunately, I missed the last international event because I had to go to a family wedding in Dubai over that same weekend, and so I missed it entirely. But I did play last Tuesday, and I'm going to play next Tuesday, which is our foundation day. So we took the day off. But so with regarding to EDGA, I think it's a great initiative, and it's something that Qaederoon has been in discussion with Gulf Saudi, how we can even promote hiring people with disability in the various golf courses that are being built by Gulf Saudi. So it's a great initiative. And also we work with the Saudi Paralympics. So again, it is very important that we give everybody the same opportunities to play golf, to play basketball, to play football, to play tennis. And if they have a disability, it doesn't mean that they can't play. They can still play and they can enjoy it. So, and there are lots of examples worldwide where that is happening. So it's not just accommodating them at sports events and making sure that they have certain areas where they can go there and watch the competitions or what have you, but also to participate as players and so on. The previous Saudi internationals I played, I think, in every Pro-Am competition, including the ladies, and we have the next one in March. So I'm trying to prepare myself to play there, and it's fantastic. My wife is still puzzled by why I should play with ladies, but that's another matter.
Especially if they're good and they beat you. But hey, are you still doing your regular trip? You have a whole big group of friends that you do an annual golf outing, right?
Yeah, we have a group called the Four Players, and four.
No, we got it.
And we're 6 Saudis and 6 Americans, and we've been together for many years now, 20 years or something. And our next outing, we're going to St Andrews, Scotland, on July 18th till the 25th, a week of golf. So we will watch the Open at St Andrews, and then the next day we go and start playing the various courses around there. We've done it a few times, done Scotland a few times, Ireland a few times, we played in Spain, we played in South Africa. We're still trying to make the trip to America and play, but America is so big and wide, to try to find a place where there are several courses so we can, and to be able to get access to it, because it's not easy. So one day we will do the U.S. Well, I have a board here which you can't see that has the top 100 courses, and you will see some gold pegs, and these are the courses I played.
Awesome.
It's difficult to really say that this is absolutely my favorite. Each course has a different flavor that I. So, for example, Old Head in Ireland was fantastic. Very difficult course, very windy around there, so you really have to contend with the wind. Barbados, they have the Green Monkey there. It's fantastic in Sandy Lane, and it's wonderful. You have in France, you have, in the U.S., they have some, beautiful courses, of course. Maybe too manicured for my golfing skills.
Well, you're doing it properly. The way I do it is completely inappropriate. I'm hoping to get out this weekend with some friends on the local municipal. It'll be 40 degrees. The golf will be horrible. The course, of course, will be cold and windy, but it's still golf with friends, so it's good.
Well, this is, a lot of people don't know, they think, okay, golf is, you're wasting a whole day of golf. You're going there playing for 4 hours, and you need an hour to get there, an hour to get back, and so that's 6 hours. And if you stop for lunch, that's it's an 8 hour day. But they forget that you go there with friends, and so you're bonding with those friends, and the amount of business that you can actually pick up on these golf courses is incredible. Mm-hmm. You meet somebody, you play with them, and the next day, it's you're talking about a business deal or a business opportunity. So again, it is part of the course, really, course of business as well as the course of golf.
Next time you come to Washington, bring those golf clubs. We'll we'll have a lot of fun.
Someday we'll
with rentals. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I'll bring my golf bag, my golf.
That's at Lucien, as a regular theme on our podcast is we're shilling for swag and that sort of thing. So someday we'll get on Royal Greens. Someday we'll get a Lucid, and I think there's something else we're shooting for. I'm sure.
Oh yes, a Richard Mille watch. Yeah, we've got a list of potential sponsors here. We just got to reach out to them.
They're just not interested in us.
Amr, I'm in a different boat than Richard. I live really close to a great golf course, but I have 2 children under the age of 2 right now. They're 14 months apart. And they may have made a few guest appearances on the podcast. I don't even know. But my ability to play golf is basically plummeted. So jealous of you guys. Richard, let's move on to... Oh, sorry, this is yours.
This is mine. Number 3, NADEC, the country's leading agricultural and food processing company and one of the largest in the Middle East and North Africa, has announced that its solar energy project is now commercially operational. The solar PV park was developed as a part of a 25-year corporate power purchase agreement between NADEC and French energy company Engie, the first of its kind in the country. The facility is roughly equivalent to 21 football pitches, has a capacity of 30 megawatts, and is expected to lower carbon emissions by 53 million kilograms per year. Thought it was interesting simply because this is a private sector effort to generate renewable energy. And obviously Saudi Arabia has remarkable plans otherwise, but interesting story.
If I can jump in with just a couple of quick thoughts. One is that the cost of renewable energy, like solar, has dropped significantly. That it has become feasible for farms and agricultural companies to use solar energy instead of putting pressure on the national grid. So that's a good thing. The second thing, which is very important, and I would recommend it for a future episode for you to talk about, which is food security. With international disruptions, the supply chain disruptions that have existed due to COVID and other reasons, like the ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, whatever, these have created shortages in food supplies. And so a lot of countries are moving to how can we ensure that doesn't happen to us? How can we ensure food security? And one way to do it is to develop farms here, develop irrigation methods, and learn from other countries and other companies that have had success in areas where there is challenges in growing food products in arid locations such as desert areas and so forth. So this is an area to keep an eye on, for sure.
Interesting. So number 4, Richard, moving forward, This Girl Is on Fire, fresh off her sold-out concert at Mariah Concert Hall in Yallah. Singer-songwriter Alicia Keys joined Saudi ambassador to the United States, Princess Rima bint Bandar Al Saud, and a group of other creative women in an intimate conversation under the theme Women to Women. The off-the-record dialogue, hosted by Good Intentions, a newly launched Saudi-based creative consultancy, was held in a town hall style where audience members asked questions, made comments, and interacted with the panel. Princess Rima is a friend of ours, Richard, and this is a really cool story. And we were sort of emailing back and forth about this new creative consultancy, Good Intentions, which is fascinating. But just a really good story here and a photo that really describes how Saudi Arabia has changed and evolved. So check this out. This was a story from Arab News.
I think Al-Ula is an area also to keep an eye on, because they are developing it rapidly. They had that event in Al-Ula, which, as I'm not a woman, I couldn't attend it and participate in it. But I think my sister did, and she enjoyed it thoroughly. But also there is a great art exhibition taking place at the moment in Al-Ula. I have a group of friends. We're planning to go next month to Al-Ula, which I haven't been in a while. So that would be an eye-opening and a relaxing 3 days that we're going for to explore and learn and discover. And one thing that another benefit of COVID-19 is for a lot of Saudis, they got the opportunity, because they couldn't travel abroad, is to travel in the country and discover their country. I've been to places I haven't been, like Al-Baha, down by the south. I was born in Amman, but I haven't been there since I left when I was 4 years old. But Al-Baha was a wonderful experience to go there and see. They have honey, they have coffee beans, lovely, beautiful mountains and escalades and what have you. So it's fantastic. The country is so varied that really Discover Your Country is a great program for any Saudi.
Yeah, domestic tourism has just exploded, and the venues now, I mean, the accommodations are improved, things are more organized in many ways, but the place like Al-Ula is just extraordinary what they've done. Not only the exhibits, I think Desert X is there now, the second Desert X or the first Desert X, but a place is culturally interesting when they have, weekly flights from Paris now to Al-Ula.
No, they had the polo match recently as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
with our future sponsor, Richard Mille.
Richard Mille, yeah, and their $1.3 million watches. I could, goodbye, Apple Watch 5. All right, 5 on Sunday, 4% of Saudi Aramco shares worth $80 billion were transferred to the kingdom's public investment fund, which is taking the lead in efforts to transform the Saudi's economy and diversify away from oil revenues. The Saudi state remains the largest shareholder in Saudi Aramco after the transfer, with more than 94% of the company's shares held. The shares transfer is expected to help the PIF achieve its goal of growing assets under management to over $1 trillion by the end of 2025. Yeah, Amr, if you listen to this podcast, you know that PIF is everywhere all the time. It's unique entity, manages external investments, is also driving internal investments meant to support and catalyze the economic diversification and growth. This is a general question, and I'm sure attitudes are varied, but how is the PIF generally perceived in the Saudi business community?
I think if you look at investments, you've got first of all, you've got short-term investments, medium-term investments, and long-term investments. And you have early stage, and you've got middle stage and later stage. And each one has associated with it certain risks. So there are projects where the private sector either does not have the resources or they don't have the appetite and they are risk averse, but they would like to jump in maybe at middle stage or later stage. So PIF has played a very important role in developing the really the economy and investing in areas where they kicked it off, whether it's something like the Lucid project in Cape or wherever they're going to put it. I think it's going to be Cape. And where the majority of those electric cars are going to be exported, and a portion will remain in the country. In building a lot of infrastructure projects, whether you're talking mega projects like Neom or Red Sea or Amala or Khnaiguiyah or any of those projects. So they are the investment arm of the government today, being the sovereign fund. And the investments they're doing outside are always aimed with how can we bring the technology back to Saudi? How can we benefit Saudi in that way? So, I think it plays a very important role. And I think it is perceived very positively by the private sector and by people in general. I love what they're doing, myself personally, and I know a lot of people who are involved in it. And really, they're also creating jobs, and not only that, they're training people the right way. So even if they decide not to stay with PIF, they're great candidates who work in private sector companies and help develop it and lead it, promote it. So there are lots of benefits for us.
I think one criticism that some had about this move of money is that it sort of dings the PIF's green credentials because now it owns 4% of the world's largest oil company. But very interesting. And they're about to do a green bond, I believe, the PIF. Richard, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Unless
I wasn't just making that up, but yes.
No.
Interesting timing with respect to that. But very fascinating. Number 5, for centuries, millions of saxol trees, commonly known by their Arabic name al-Kharada, provided firewood, animal feed, and respite from the desert heat for the Bedouin forefathers of modern Saudis. Planting saxol trees is now part of a green initiative by the Saudi government aimed at reducing carbon emissions, pollution, and land degradation. 250,000 of the drought-resistant trees will be planted this year in the central Qasim region. The kingdom aims to plant 10 billion trees in the coming decades, as well as work with other Arab states to plant an additional 40 billion trees across the Middle East. Richard, we talked a little bit about this last week with David Rundell. We couldn't quite believe the number 10 billion trees. That's a lot of trees, but very, very interesting story here. Saudi is basically just saying, let's start working on our local climate here and let's get a lot of these trees in the ground. It looks like the saxol tree is perfect for this.
That number is huge, 10 billion. And actually, I saw a note that said if it takes 20 years to plant 10 billion trees, that means they have to plant around 1.5 million trees a day, which, as we've said before, the numbers are always aspirational. Saudi Arabia is very good at this, but the direction is what's important. And I think Saudi Arabia has made a point all along with regard to this global energy conversion. The one they made, the CLP 26, and have made over and over. Said, all right, this is not just about quickly replacing crude with renewables. This is about a whole number of tools to address carbon capture and reducing emissions. And it can be carbon capture. It can be planting trees. It can be any number of things that contribute. So let's use everything in the toolbox. Let's not just vilify oil. And think that's the answer to everything. This is part of that, and that's a lot of trees. But planting trees has shown to be an important means to capture carbon. So it's a good initiative. The saxol tree, I'm sure you know it, is not a particularly attractive tree, Amr.
No, it isn't. But I have a couple of comments about this. One is that we live in a desert country. And the desert has been encroaching continuously. So to stop that movement, you've got to stop it with with trees, no matter how ugly or how pretty they are. Secondly, greenery is the oxygen of the planet, really. And thirdly, technology has changed a lot, and our understanding of climatic dynamics has shown that through planting trees, you can actually reduce the heat by 1 or 2 degrees. You can create more humidity, which will create more rain, more irrigation, and that would kind of help to change the topography of the country from a desert to a semi-desert, and maybe hopefully to fertile areas. And then we can have rivers, and we can have all kinds of things. And so the technology itself over the last few years has changed a lot in this area. And we're learning from it, and we're bringing this knowledge and that technology to help us do this. And today, I know that, when you think 1.5 million trees, as you remember, I told you my early days when I first started Amkest Group, we were in the landscaping business. So I know a little bit about this. It's no longer you bring a tree and you plant it by hand. And so today there are special machines that come and they can plant 100 trees in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour even. And the more and you can use machinery and automation in planting those trees fairly quickly, and maybe it is achievable. I don't know. I haven't really got into the specifics, but I can imagine with today's technology and equipment and tools and processes, it could be achievable.
And again, let's say you reach 8 billion. That's still remarkable. And interesting, Ministry of Environment, the Minister of Environment has said that no groundwater or water produced in fossil fuel-powered desalination plants would be used to irrigate the trees. The project will rely on treated water and renewable water resources such as rainwater, seawater, and cloud seeding. You're talking about technology, Amr, different ways.
We think about the environment benefit that untreated water, instead of pumping it into the sea and polluting the sea, you use it for irrigating these trees, which are happy to have it because it's not untreated water specifically as much as it's not water that you can drink, but the trees would love it because it's full of nutrients. So it's a double benefit here. You're protecting the seas from dumping it in the seas, and you're using it to irrigate these trees.
I mean, if anybody can do it, it'll be Saudi Arabia. From the people that brought you the mega city and the mega development, the mega planting is next. The planting, maybe. Amr Khashoggi is a Saudi businessman, philanthropist, great guy. Really appreciate it, Amr. Thank you so much for your time coming on. It was an awesome conversation.
Thank you, Amr.
Thank you.
That's a golf clap.
I would like to clap for you, really, because if you would allow me this last few words to really commend both of you. I've been watching the podcast 966, and I found it informative. I learned a lot from it. You have become a source of information that is rich and not only that, it is also credible. So I know that you don't mince your words. Somebody telling you things that are not correct, you would actually correct them, and that's great. And really, I just want to wish you great success in this program, and I'm honored to be invited to be on it. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Omar. That means a lot coming from you. It's high praise. And you haven't seen the last of it. We'll invite you back for sure.
With pleasure.